top video of the week with over 40,000 views was a scene from Unification. Do you remember that one with Spock?
Yeah, and
Okay,
Sarek,
so
right?
yeah, so the scene that got all the views was where Picard was uh, basically intimidating a Klingon to get a ship. They wanted a cloaked ship, and the Klingon wasn't believing him. And then Picard um, basically threatens him with, "Hey, if you don't do this, you know what Gowron's going to do to you, right?" And that got like a lot of comments, and we'll take a look at them. But something that I would have said if I was commenting on it is that like Picard's like his version of diplomacy here is basically intimidation. He's using his manners like almost as a weapon, like almost like a bat lift to corner this Klingon into compliance. And to me, this is like season 5, and it's right around the time that DS9's coming out, and it was like really the first time you see like Picard, who's usually this prim and proper, moral high ground guy, and he kind of gets into the mud here. And I think like it's something that moving forward, Star Trek doesn't shy away from.
Yeah, I mean, and then you think like Cisco then took it to a whole other level.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
Um,
think the difference Cisco wouldn't have been relying on the gravitas of having Gowron. It would have been like, I'm gonna do something to you.
oh yeah, yeah. He would have said, either do it or we're gonna blow you out of the sky and we'll wait for the next captain or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I went to our um, comment section of the video, and the top comment with over 100 likes on it was just someone saying a master class in Picard Klingon diplomacy.
Who?
And
Why don't you cite who said this? Give
oh,
them some
okay, what?
credit.
There you go. So Tony, I was thinking like, what if it's just this ridiculous name, but it's not. It's
Some
Tony.
people might say Tony is a ridiculous name, but
Well, it depends which neighborhood you're from. Tony and Anachino says a master class in Picard Klingon diplomacy, right? And then the top reply from FN Lonely is while we didn't see much of Captain Cisco dealing with Klingons, I bet his emotional and physical strength would make him ideal for dealing with Klingons, as he isn't your typical Starfleet officer, nor is he like the older shows in how the characters are portrayed as more level headed. He is probably one of the most relatable and realistic characters of the main characters of Star Trek. So that's interesting because he mentioned Cisco and so did you. Hey, are
yeah,
you FN
I didn't.
lonely?
Well, that describes me, but that was not my comment. I didn't even I actually didn't see that comment.
So some of the other replies, um, not only in Klingon diplomacy, but diplomacy in general. So I guess diplomacy always carries. It's usually in that realm of before we go to war, why don't we try diplomacy? But I guess there's always a threat of, well, if this doesn't work, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And then and then the
No, I mean
second.
it just but stay there. Like, where would he have gone? Would he have actually like blown him out of the sky and waited for the next captain, like the way you said Cisco would?
No, I guess the threat was, I guess he was sort of bluffing a little bit because his his thing would have been like, well, I'll wait a week while you go back to Klingon and tell Gowron that you didn't give me what I wanted. But and then we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks. But yet they needed to get to Romulus in the next 2 days.
I'm
So
just when you said that he was bluffing, it made me think of like one of the comments I did read that I like laughed a lot, and maybe we're gonna get to it is the one that said when the music started playing. that like he knew the Klingon knew Picard was serious.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, it's just like dome.
Yeah, actually, we were thinking of making that, its own short.
Oh,
Yeah, stay tuned for that, it's coming up. Um, the next one's kind of a visual, it's I can see Gowron's eyes bulging in this Klingons
I
as
didn't
this
know where
recount.
you were going with.
Yeah, yeah, I could see Gowron's eyes bulging as this Klingon recounts the message.
Now I'm not as familiar
And
with
then
the clip, but what does he mean? Why? Why? Oh, oh,
like
okay, okay.
when he tells him, right? So like the number one reply to that is, I can see his eyes bulging while he's eating breakfast or reading the newspaper or walking his dog or
While
getting the
he's
mail.
sleeping, that was like. You think that was just a? Is that the actor? You think he has bulging eyes, or you think that was like a character choice on like a choice for his acting?
Well, it's absolutely a character choice because he kind of did one take of it like that, and I think Jonathan Frakes was the director, and he said, "Do that again," and he did it, and he goes, "Okay, yeah, that's him." So he kind of did it because I I saw a recent interview,
Oh,
and
I
he
didn't know if you were just pulling that out of your ass.
yeah, no, he said, I'm doing this character and I'm in the makeup and I just felt like I looked like everyone else who's in this makeup. And so I just on one take did this thing with my eyes. Anyone could do it. You do it. Well, almost anyone could do it.
I didn't.
Uh,
You know what's funny is I did not think I could do it, but you gave me the confidence to try.
well, so almost anyone could do it. So, so we did it and Frakes liked it and then the producers liked it. So that became his thing. And, as Gowron, this from Kirby one, Gowron, eyes bulging, so a Tuesday then. So I guess we all have the same idea. Um, and so DeFayez says,
So when we were 15 and we watched that episode originally, when
yeah.
you told me to check out Galron's bulge, I didn't know you meant his eyes.
So DeFayez says, how would it benefit the Klingon Empire? And Picard says, well, we're gonna F with the Romulans. Well, why didn't you say so? You sure you just want one? And there we go. Can I come? Because then he says, "Oh, can I come?" Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. From Levine. Um, so Grimlocks says that's a master class in politics and diplomacy right there. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you think that if a writer's not writing this, that this sort of diplomacy works in the real world?
Um, it probably, helps to have a stick, a carrot and a stick approach.
Right, but would you go to work and try that out, like with your boss?
No, you wouldn't do it with a boss. I
Like
mean,
threaten to go over their head, like, "Oh, if you don't get me that
well, I mean, I guess
stapler
it
that
depends
I
on the
want," or
boss.
yeah. Well, do you think it works, in military terms?
I don't know if it works in military, but maybe like just with diplomats.
Right. But I mean, I guess you'd have to know what the leverage is, because Picard knew that he had all the leverage he needed once he reminded him, and they had Worf in the background, you know, maybe
No, but
two.
I mean, you're saying like when you say if it works for the military, I'm saying diplomats. I mean, if you're just saying if you're politically motivated and you don't want someone going over your head, you might then play it safe. But if you talk about like, oh, a Klingon warrior, if it was just a matter of honor and, we're stronger than you, then maybe he wouldn't have.
Right. So now we have Snarkleton26 saying Picard could not just deal with, but could actually befriend Klingon high command officers because of his calm, highbrow negotiating skills and talent. That is one area that definitely separates him from Admiral James T. Kirk, as great as Kirk was. So,
Admiral Kirk.
Admiral Kirk.
Admiral Kirk.
So, do you think that? What do you think? Do you think Kirk, going back to the original series, forget about movie Kirk. Do you think that they would have ever written a similar scene for Kirk?
I do. I think, and he would have just played it even more smarmy. You don't think
See,
so?
well, I mean, and I'm going back to my memory of the original series. Like that seemed more almost like a Voyager type situation where they hardly ever had contact. We never really saw their contact with the Federation. We didn't see admirals. We didn't see a chain of command. It was sort of like they were out there on their own. So I
Yeah,
feel like they wouldn't, then they never would have had, since it was serialized, they never would have, it was a, episode of the week. They wouldn't say, they wouldn't be a Gowron, uh, that we would have seen in, if I'm wrong on the episode, Ascension, when he becomes, we wouldn't have seen him become
right.
High Chief or, Chief of the Council or whatever it is. So I don't think that they would have written that for Kirk. I do think in the actual Star Trek universe, Kirk had those skills,
Yeah,
but
that's what I was saying. I was
yeah,
saying I see what you're saying in terms of would they have written that for him in that series, but I would see that more, even more than Picard. I would have seen that as like a more of Kirkian type of dialogue for him,
right.
like a ruse that he would use, like he would bluff more than I would see Picard
Well, I
doing.
mean, I mean, they literally had they bluffed Klingons to come onto the Enterprise and then blow it up in Star Trek 3. So I guess that makes sense.
You know why? Because you changed the rules.
That's from Star Trek 2. Um, one
Now,
of
are
the
you
single.
saying Star
Yeah, go
Trek
ahead.
2 or Star Trek also?
Yeah, yeah, all of them. Um, here we go. Here we go. That is diplomacy. No screaming, no insults, calm and cool. All right. I think we've probably been through that. Thank you, Tommy Boy 2009. Um, Swingisic, SWNGSSC says, I wonder what it must have been like on the set when they shot this. Some people being speechless, some cheering and jumping, and some realizing that they will never, not in a million years, be this good. Well, that's just Gates McFadden. So I don't know. That would be interesting. That if there was any one of those reactions, it seems to me that that's the kind of reaction that we have 30 some odd years later, and not necessarily because it would have been like one of 24 episodes they're shooting in like 8 months, and it would be like, all right, did we get it? Good. Let's move on to the next scene.
All right. Yeah.
But you know, it's nice to be watching it on your phone 35 years later and being like, "This is good acting. It's pretty good. The
Yeah. I
writing's
want
pretty
to,
good too."
in 1989 when they're like filming these things, that they realize that like people are just going to rewatch this so much. Although, I mean, I guess the original series was rewatched throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you know?
Yeah, but not necessarily like cut up
In
scenes
1 minute
like this.
clips.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
minute clips and um, yeah, exactly. So it
Unless
went
you were like recording them on those 5 minute VHSs tapes.
all right. Someone wrote, "I love Picard's French accent." I think they were saying that in jest. And then so that was 1984 Mabu, but Boa Omega replied he went to school at Oxford. And then Gawain the First replied, "Oh, I'm pretty sure he's speaking French. It's just that his universal translator has a British accent." All right, we got a couple more. So someone chimes in about Kirk. They said the notorious NOE says Kirk would have just opened fire, which
I
was
can
sort
see
of
that.
yeah. Um, and then Alt Rock says, "See, the Federation always says they don't interfere in the politics of members or allies, but then they go and do stuff like this. It's no wonder their neighbors see them as two-faced, right?" And then Addy Pollard, so, pushes back. He says, he only did it as a threat. Besides, there are plenty of Klingons that are not aligned with Gowron who would love to work with the Federation to get the upper hand. All right, so that sounds like something they might talk about. Um, I definitely think that this was something out of the ordinary. They were not necessarily interfering in the politics of the Klingons here. Maybe the Romulans, but they're not members of the Federation, and they're technically not allies. They were holding, as far as they knew, Spock, their ambassador. So, it was a clandestine mission.
Yeah, it wasn't a well that Picard was going to go to too often.
Yep. So,
That's all I got.
yeah. Any final thoughts on this episode or this clip?
I need more of a prompting question
Well,
that
do you think so? All right. So this is a clip that stands out. I've seen it before. It stands out to me when I watch the episode. Do you think that that 1 minute in time, because we're talking about the fact that, when they're doing this, they don't know that we're going to be able to just chop these things into 1 minute and share it with so far over 40,000 people. Do you think that it's what makes it so good? Is it the writing, the directing, the acting, all of it?
it's funny because when you start watching Star Trek in shorts, it's almost I don't mean you're wearing shorts while you watch it. It's almost it lends itself to breaking it down into little bit pieces like that, almost as if they wrote it. And then maybe when you're right, even in the 80s and the 90s, you have to think in terms of, chunking things by scene to make it,
Commercial breaks and things like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because, you can just sit there scrolling through Star Trek shorts and be like, wow, when I watched this as a full episode, I didn't realize how good these individual scenes were, you know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. All right. So, sounds good. I'm kind of interested in seeing what's going to be the top comment of the top video next week. All right. So maybe we'll do this again.
Trekking through the comments.